Hello. Welcome back to Chime In with Jaleesa with yours truly. Before we jump into the bulk of today's episode, I want to start the same way I've been starting and will continue to start for as long as I can remember. Thank you so much for your support and the love, and for everybody reaching out and either commenting, leaving a rate. Is that what it's called? A rating? Sure. Subscribing, commenting, all the good things. Please continue to do so if you haven't already. Everything you need is down in the description or the bio. It's not a bio, it's a description for sure. Let me do a quick little catch up, since we're doing housekeeping. I am about to enter the new space of life. So I'm moving. Shocker again. I've been on the East Coast. That has nothing to do with that. I've been on the East Coast for 6 years. Eventually, in the next couple weeks, I will be picking myself up and moving somewhere. Location to be determined, to be announced. Stay tuned. In addition to me picking my life back up and moving somewhere brand new, I am actually going to go home for a little bit. So, who knows, we might finally have some guest appearances that have been in the works for about a year now. Hopefully we can get some of that checked off. I don't know what I was about to swap with my hand. What else? By the time this video comes out, I will hopefully be more packed for not only my trip home, but for my trip to Dallas. For those who don't know, I'm going, I leave Thursday, go to a really cool opportunity. Well, I say opportunity, but I guess it is. A really cool live show for another podcast that I watch. It's called the You Should Know Podcast. This video isn't sponsored, but I really do like this guy's podcast. I will also link theirs down below. And so we're going to the live show. I'm going with my cousin and my dad, and I'm super excited because this is about to be a good show. But onto my show. Today's episode, today's podcast topic is one that I've been really good about lately, but I've been more aware that's this is something that gets talked about. There's an eyelash in my eye. I'm gonna go blonde. Anyways, I want to talk about feedback and how to handle feedback and the different levels that it comes in, because everybody's got something to say. All of us have gone through the different spaces, whether it's being an athlete, being an employee, or just being a general person that takes feedback. So for me, I just realized how much I'm moving my hands, and now I'm going. I'm having a whole episode. What's going on? So we're gonna talk about feedback. At the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to get into. So I read this. I don't know if it was a TikTok or if I saw it on Twitter. And if you guys see me keep looking around, I'm looking at my phone because these have my little notes on it. I don't know if you can see, but I keep all my little notes that I don't have in my notebook in my phone for easy access. I saw this, like I said, I don't know if I was on TikTok, I don't know if I was on Twitter, Instagram, something, but it said your comfort zone is not a good benchmark. And I read it and it hit me in my core, the essence of who I am as a person. That's where it got me. Because where you're comfortable is great. It's a good starting point, but like that quote says, it's not your benchmark. That's not where you should be hitting. Feedback gives us the space to take where we are now and progress as life comes. And so I think when we think about feedback, we always think it's something negative. It's something that somebody with power gets to exert over you, and that's not the case. Well, it is if you look at it like that, so don't look at it like that. But for a long time, I think I lived really passively. So I would just exist. And not in the way that I've talked about before, but I would exist in the way that was like, okay, like this is what I have to do. I have to go to class, go to workouts, lift, go to the trainer. And then obviously as I was no longer an athlete, I had to wake up, go to work, go to class, go do these things. I had to go live. But I wasn't really finding myself excited about getting up and going to chase that passion, chase that dream. And so I was living really passively, and I was like content with what other people wanted for me. So people were like, oh my God, you know, you got your bachelor's and your master's, like what an incredible accomplishment. And while it is very much an incredible accomplishment, I was like, dang, like I want to do more, but I want to make sure it's stuff that I want to do. And for me, and I think for a lot of us, we do need that feedback. Like I said, whether it's from a coach, a peer, colleague, employer, a friend, even, look, my friends know, put me in, like, call me out. I won't say put me in check, she might hurt my feelings, but call me out when, you know, I'm not on my path. A lot of my friends, I think, are at the point where they know me well enough to be like, hey, like, you know, the Jaleesa that, I'm like having a lot of health issues. I don't know what's happening. But they sit there and they're like, oh, the Jaleesa that we really know and like we have seen passionately like strive for something, she would not be proud of what you're doing now, or she would not be as enthusiastic about these life choices. And so I'm really like thankful, grateful, appreciative when my friends call me out. Not a big fan when my family calls me out because I like to do it back and then it just turns into like a whole roasting session. But when my friends do it, I don't know, I think a lot of us are like that. We tend to listen more. The type of feedback, and I think this is like super huge, because you'll get positive feedback, you'll get negative feedback, you'll get encouraging feedback, and then you'll get feedback that in your head you're like, okay, I don't see how that's helpful, but later on down the line it might develop into something. And I want to take this from two perspectives. Like I mentioned, you can be an athlete, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about, or you can be in like an employer space, giving and receiving feedback. Starting with the athlete, all of us at some point have been told by a coach, here's what you need to do because this is where you are, this is where you want to go, here's the work that we're doing in the middle. And a lot of that middle work is getting feedback. It's like, you know, tearing down your muscles, building them back up. And receiving feedback is doing the same thing on the mental level. So obviously I had, oh God, I just thought of all the overwhelming amounts of feedback I've received. Obviously, like I said, falling everywhere on the spectrum, from encouraging when I was injured to me doing really well, just, oh, it's the lighting is changing and I hope it's not messing me up, to, oh, I'm doing pretty well right now, let's keep it going, to Jaleesa, you are off the deep end, you need to get your life together. I've had all types of feedback. As an athlete, at first, depending on who the coach was, I was not the biggest fan of feedback because I was like, oh, you know, you're not here enough to give me feedback that I find beneficial. Obviously, I changed out of that very early on simply because I realized me getting feedback was the fastest way for me to grow. I literally saw it as a catalyst for growth because I wanted to be better. And for the longest time in my life, and I think I've mentioned this before, for the longest time in my life, I wanted to be better because I wanted to beat my brothers. Jason and Josh, if you're listening, ever since I was 5 and we started track, I wanted to beat you more than anything. So when you guys raced during like Christmas or whatever, and one of y'all messed up your little hamstring, you have no idea how bad I wanted to be like, ooh, me next. I didn't even get to see the race, but there's a funny video of it. Anyways, not important. Like I said, feedback gives you that opportunity to work closer to your goal, work closer to your goal, work more towards your goal. Like it's giving you something to see your routine now and then make adjustments and then grow. As athletes, we can all attest to that. In the workplace, take that same ability of being coachable and apply it to being an employee and an employer. Like, I think a lot of us think, oh, I'm at this lower level, this entry level job, I have to sit here and take all the feedback. I have to make adjustments, and I'm the only one that has to. Or like all of us lower level, entry level people have to make all these adjustments, while the higher ups and everything, they can just keep things the way they are. Either way, wherever you fall on this hierarchy, you need to be able to be coachable, and you need to be able to receive feedback. Because especially in the workplace, if you are like stuck in your way on one thing and you don't change, people are not going to want to work for you. Especially if it's like a really toxic or like not welcoming environment. The thing I want to talk about with feedback, and this goes beyond being an athlete, being an employee or employer, this comes down to being a human. I cannot imagine what's going to happen if it gets too dark before I'm done. I guess I should just finish then. I should stop talking about my lighting situation. Being a human, like I said, I have my friends, kind of nudge me when I need to, but one surefire way that all of us have at receiving feedback is our bodies. Mind, body, soul, mind, heart, soul, mind, body, and soul. That doesn't sound right now that I'm saying it out loud, but you guys will understand what I mean. At some point, your body will give you a surefire sign that something is out of balance, out of whack. And so to give you an example, when I have a migraine, something's wrong. My body's giving me feedback. Hey, you need food. Hey, you need water. Hey, you need rest. You will get very, very distinctive signs that something in your system is out of whack. And there's different ways to, readjust and get your life back. One thing you really need to be careful of is that people, unfortunately, out there are going to try and manipulate you. Unfortunately, there are people out there that see, good energy, positive energy, kindness. They see it as a weakness that they can manipulate. So yes, you want to be very flexible in adjusting and like taking things in, but you don't want to be so malleable that people can bend you to their own will. Like I said, there are unfortunately people out here in this world that will take the goodness that they see radiating off of you and they will twist it to their own benefit, leaving you with nothing, and you don't want that. Another thing I want to point out, because I think it was another podcast, or again, it could have been on Twitter. It was not on Twitter. I know it was not on Twitter. But it could have been on like TikTok or something like that. And somebody was like, oh, like I don't take offense anymore when people say, oh, you've changed. Because you're supposed to. Everything, like literally everything in our life constantly changes. At some point, things will change. The seasons, the weather. Literally 10 minutes ago, it was sunny. It's now pouring rain outside. The weather changed. It's supposed to. The growth that you are going through will lead to a change. Because if you are the same person that you were at the beginning as you are at the end, you did not grow. You went through this journey, this heartache, this anger, these, all these crazy things, essentially for no reason, because you didn't become anything. You stayed the same person. You're meant to change in this world. And there's nothing I can express that's more important than learning to see your change. And if it's something that makes you happy, if you can look at yourself in the mirror every day, every other day, and go, I am happy with who is staring back at me, then it doesn't matter what other people say. You have to be able to look yourself in the face at the end of the day. And that's why receiving feedback in whatever form is so important. Because if you want to have friends, if you want to be a really good athlete, if you want to do well in your job, you're going to take that feedback that people give you and make it into something, or like take it, change it, rearrange it, and make it something that you can grow with. To give you two more examples, I once had a friend tell me that when I don't share my experiences and I don't allow myself, ooh, here comes that lightning, and I don't allow myself the opportunity to be vulnerable with them, and it'll be somebody I completely trust. Here's the thunder. Anyways, when I don't share myself with them, and it's not out of a place of like selfishness or I don't trust them, like I said, it's just I don't, because I don't see my problems as big. They told me that when I don't share that with them, it makes them feel like a bad friend, because they want to be able to help me because I help them. Like I said, a lot of my friendships are giving and receiving as needed. Like, I will never look at my roommate and be like, oh, I need you to do all these things for me, but please don't ask me to do anything. Like, that'd be crazy, wouldn't it? You ask somebody for a favor, they turn around 2 days later, ask you for one, you're like, no. Like, that'd be bad. And so she was telling me, like, I feel like I can't be as great of a friend for you because you don't open up to me. And it made me realize, like, I didn't know I was making her feel like that. So I took that feedback. Again, this is a friend that I really care about. I took that feedback and I was like, okay, like, let me work on that. Like, let me, put myself in a headspace to where I can communicate these things with you, to where I can tell you these are my fears, these are my, emotions right now. And so that was a form of me taking feedback from somebody. At work, it was for my internship, and so our supervisor, employer, they had to do a feedback form, and we had to later sit down with said supervisor and go over the feedback form. I was terrified because I was like, what is she about to tell me? Like, what did she go tell my program about how I am here? And obviously there were things I needed to work on, fix. I distinctly remember she was like, speak up, like, be more confident about suggestions, ideas, solutions, anything like that. She was like, you have good answers, you have good options. That's not the word I wanted. You have good things to say, you have a lot to say. She was like, you need to put yourself in a space to where you can say it, because you need to, especially as a woman in the sport industry, especially as a minority woman in the sport industry. Talk, like, get it out. Even, like, your suggestion doesn't need to be used, like, it doesn't have to be the one that gets picked, but at least it's up for consideration because you know it's a good idea. Now let other people realize it's a good idea. And she also told me, she was like, you need to be able to think outside of the box more. Initially, when I heard that feedback, I was annoyed because I was like, think outside of the box, how? Because this job isn't like ooh, let's be super creative. But then I realized thinking outside of the box was more, what are options that are not traditional, that will pique interest, that will keep people retained and engaged and whatnot. Then she also told me I was very coachable, which kind of was the inspiration of this episode, because being coachable, in my opinion, is something that I really do take pride in. And so there's all these different ways to be coachable, and there's different ways I like to apply it to my life, because for so long I sat there searching and praying to find somewhere where I belonged, and I found out I wasn't in the wrong place. It wasn't the wrong time, but the feedback I was getting from various aspects of my life helped me pinpoint the direction I wanted to go. So in all actuality, yes, a coach, an employer, a friend, they might be giving you feedback because it affects them as well, but you have the opportunity to take that and make it work for you. They might have a perspective that I don't have, and I want to be able to weigh all my options. And so, with all of that being said, don't always look at feedback as something super duper negative, because chances are it's not, and you can change that negative into a positive. So do it. No, just so mean. But thank you once again for chiming in with Jaleesa. Again, everything you need is in the description. Show your girl some love, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.